They found Thor's blade in my tent, shattered, covered in blood, and the entire Viking army wanted my head. My name is Erik Grimskald, and I'm a Norse warrior who has fought in 30 raids across England's shores. I've killed men, I've burned villages, but I never betrayed my oath brothers. Until the night before our greatest battle, someone decided I should die for a crime I didn't commit. The sacred sword of our commander, Jarl Haldor Stormbreaker, the blade blessed by the gods themselves, had vanished. And when dawn broke, they discovered it in my tent, broken into 3 pieces, still wet with what looked like sacrificial blood. If you already suspect who the true traitor is among us, speak your theory below. Most who watch this saga guess wrong. 3 days before this nightmare began, our longships cut through gray northern waves toward Northumbria's shore. We were 200 strong, berserkers, shield maidens, and seasoned warriors. Our target, the monastery at Lindisfarne, rich with Christian gold, undefended by warriors, ripe for taking. But Jarl Haldor wasn't just any war chief. He carried Fenris Fang, a legendary blade forged in Uppsala's fires and blessed at Thor's altar. Our men believed that sword held the favor of the gods themselves. Lose the sword, lose the war. It was that simple, that absolute. The night before the raid, I sat by the campfire, sharpening my axe. Pine smoke mixed with salt air from the sea. I could hear other warriors around the camp, some offering prayers to Odin, others drinking mead and making boasts about tomorrow's glory. That's when I saw him. Bjorn the Silent, my former shield brother, the man I once trusted with my life during the English campaigns. He was walking toward Haldor's tent, glancing around like a thief checking for witnesses. Our eyes met for just a heartbeat, and in that moment, I saw something I'd never seen in Bjorn before. Fear. But there's something you don't know yet, something that makes everything darker. 3 years ago, Bjorn and I both loved the same woman, a shield maiden named Astrid Ravenhair. She chose me. Bjorn swore an oath that night, his voice shaking with rage. "You stole my honor, Erik. One day, I'll take yours." I never thought he meant it. I thought it was just the mead talking, just the pain of a wounded heart. I was wrong. The next morning, I woke to the sound of steel being drawn outside my tent, and 20 Viking warriors standing in the fog, with murder in their eyes. "Open the tent, Grimskald." That was Jarl Haldor's voice, cold as winter steel, furious as a wounded bear, the kind of voice that meant someone was about to meet the gods. I pushed aside the leather flap and stepped into the morning fog. The entire warband had gathered in a circle, 200 Viking warriors, and I stood at the center like a sacrifice on an altar. Their hands rested on sword hilts, their eyes burned with the kind of rage reserved for oathbreakers and kinslayers. "My blade is missing," Haldor said. Each word fell like a hammer blow. "Fenris Fang, the sword that has led us to victory in every raid since Uppsala. Someone took it from my tent while I slept." My stomach twisted. "Then we search the entire camp, find the thief, and we already searched." Haldor nodded to his second-in-command, a massive berserker named Ulf Ironhand. The man who had fought beside our Jarl for 15 winters. He stepped forward, holding something wrapped in bloodied cloth. When he unwrapped it, slowly, deliberately, I felt my world collapse beneath me. 3 pieces of shattered steel, the distinctive wolf head pommel that every warrior in our band would recognize. Fenris Fang, destroyed. "Where did you find this?" I asked, though I already knew the answer, already felt the noose tightening around my neck. "In your tent," Ulf growled, his voice carrying across the silent camp. "Under your bedroll, the blood still warm on the blade." The accusations came like arrows from every direction. Warriors I had fought beside, men whose lives I had saved in the shield wall. Now they looked at me like I was worse than nothing, like I was a nithing, a man without honor. "You always resented Haldor's command," one shouted. "You wanted to lead this raid yourself," another spat. "Everyone saw your ambition." "The gods curse you, Grimskald. May ravens feast on your corpse." But I wasn't listening to their fury. I was watching Bjorn. He stood at the back of the gathered warriors, arms crossed over his chest, face carefully blank. Too blank. Like a man watching a play he had already seen performed. Like a man who knew exactly how this story would end. And I noticed something that made my blood run colder than the northern sea. His hands. Bjorn's hands were trembling. Just slightly. The kind of shake a man gets when fear and excitement mix together in his chest. "I didn't take the sword," I said, keeping my voice steady and strong. Years of battle had taught me this hard lesson. Panic gets you killed faster than any blade. "But I know who did." The crowd went silent. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Jarl Haldor stepped closer, close enough that I could smell the mead on his breath from the night before, close enough to see the red veins in his eyes from lack of sleep and too much worry. "Speak carefully, Grimskald. Your next words decide whether you die quick with honor or slow with shame." "The thing," I said, invoking the sacred law that governed all free Norsemen, the ancient assembly where disputes were settled by testimony and judgment. "I demand my right to present evidence before the warband. Give me until sunset. If I cannot prove my innocence by then—" I paused, meeting Haldor's eyes without flinching. "Then I will accept the blood eagle." A ripple of shock went through the crowd. The blood eagle. The most brutal punishment our people knew. Your back cut open, ribs pulled apart like wings, lungs spread out while you still breathed and screamed. A death so terrible that it was reserved only for the worst traitors, for oath-breakers, for men who betrayed their own brothers. Haldor studied my face for a long moment. I could see him weighing my words, testing my resolve. Somewhere in the distant camp, a raven cawed 3 times. Bad omen, the kind of sign that made men nervous. "Sunset," he finally said. "The thing convenes when the sun touches the horizon. Bring proof of your innocence, Grimskald, or bring your courage to face what comes." As the crowd began to disperse, muttering among themselves, I grabbed my weapons from inside my tent. 1 war axe, 1 sax knife, and exactly 6 hours before sunset to find the real traitor. 6 hours before I would be executed in front of the entire army while they carved my death into my flesh. But I knew something they didn't. Bjorn wasn't working alone. Someone with access to Haldor's tent had helped him steal that blade. Someone the Jarl trusted enough to let close. And I had a terrible suspicion growing in my gut about who that someone might be. I had 6 hours to save my life. So I started where every Norse investigation begins, with cunning, not courage. First target, Bjorn's tent. I waited until he left camp with the other warriors, then slipped inside. The smell hit me immediately. Leather oil, sweat, and something else underneath. Something metallic that made my skin crawl. Blood? Maybe. Or maybe just fear playing tricks on my mind. I searched quickly, but carefully. Bedroll, nothing. Weapon chest, nothing but his usual blades and armor. But then, hidden beneath a pile of furs in the corner, I found something that changed everything. A small leather pouch, heavy. When I opened it, silver coins spilled into my palm. A lot of silver. Far more than any warrior should have from our last raid. And these weren't Norse coins. These were Saxon, fresh minted, the kind that came from Christian monasteries and English lords. This wasn't just betrayal. Someone had paid Bjorn to destroy that sword. Looking for something, Grimskald? I spun around fast. Ulf Ironhand blocked the tent entrance, his massive frame filling the doorway. His hand rested on his sword hilt in that casual way men do before they kill you. Found something interesting, I said, holding up the silver pouch so he could see it clearly. Your friend Bjorn has been getting rich. Question is, who's paying him? Ulf's expression didn't change, but his eyes flickered to the pouch for just a heartbeat too long, like he recognized it, like he'd seen it before. Maybe he saved his shares from previous raids, Ulf said, but his voice had that careful tone men use when they're lying. Or maybe, I stepped closer, watching his face, someone wanted Fenris Fang destroyed. Someone who benefits from chaos in our ranks. Someone who wants this raid to fail before we even reach Lindisfarne's shores. Ulf's jaw clenched tight. A muscle twitched in his cheek. Careful what you're suggesting, Grimskald. Accusations without proof make you look desperate. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm stating facts. That silver is Saxon coin, fresh minted with English kings on the faces. We haven't raided Saxon territory in 2 years. So where did Bjorn get it? Who gave it to him? And why? Before Ulf could answer, a commotion erupted outside. Shouting, metal clanging against metal, the sound of violence about to explode. I pushed past Ulf and ran toward the noise, my heart pounding. At the center of camp, Jarl Haldor had Bjorn pinned against a wooden post. The Jarl's face was purple with rage, veins standing out on his neck like ropes. "You lying dog!" Haldor roared loud enough for the entire camp to hear. "I found this in your weapon chest." He held up a piece of leather cord, decorated with small carved runes that glowed faintly in the morning light. I recognized it instantly. It was the sacred binding that had wrapped Fenris Fang's hilt. The blessing cord tied by the priests at Uppsala. The thief must have cut it off when they broke the blade. Bjorn's face went white as snow. "That's not... I didn't... Liar!" Haldor backhanded him hard. Blood sprayed from Bjorn's mouth, spattering the ground. "You planted evidence in Grimskald's tent to frame him like a coward. But you kept a trophy like an arrogant fool. You wanted to remember your crime." The warband pressed in closer, hungry for blood and justice. They had found their traitor. Finally, someone to blame. Someone to punish. But I wasn't celebrating, because I had seen something nobody else noticed. Something that made my blood run even colder than before. That leather cord wasn't just in Bjorn's chest. It was placed on top of his weapons, perfectly visible, like someone wanted it to be found, like someone had planted it there. Bjorn wasn't the real traitor. He was the second scapegoat, and the actual conspirator was still walking free among us, watching this chaos unfold exactly as planned. Jarl Haldor lowered his blade slowly, reluctantly. "You have 2 hours left, Grimskald. Use them wisely." I grabbed Bjorn by his torn shirt and dragged him away from the crowd. His lip was split open, one eye already swelling shut from Haldor's blow. But I needed answers more than he needed mercy. "The silver," I hissed quietly so no one else could hear. "Where did you get it? Who paid you?" "I can't tell you," Bjorn mumbled through bloody teeth. His voice was thick with pain and something else. Fear. "They're going to blood eagle you, you fool. She'll die if I talk." Everything stopped. The world went silent. "She?" I said slowly, carefully. "Who is she?" Bjorn's one good eye met mine, and suddenly I saw it clearly. The same fear I'd seen by the campfire that night, but this wasn't the fear of a guilty man facing punishment. This was the fear of someone trying to protect something precious, someone he loved more than his own life. "Astrid," I whispered. His face crumbled like a broken shield. "They have her. The woman we both loved 3 years ago, the shield maiden who chose me over him, the reason Bjorn swore his oath of revenge. She wasn't just gone from our lives, she was a hostage." "Tell me everything," I said, sitting beside him on the cold ground. "Start from the beginning, all of it." Bjorn took a shaky breath that rattled in his chest. 2 weeks ago, a Saxon monk approached me in the last town. Said he represented someone powerful, someone who wanted to stop this raid before it began. The Saxons know we're coming? They've always known, Erik. But this was different. This monk knew about Astrid, knew exactly where she was. Said she'd been captured by Saxon slave traders last month when her ship was raiding alone near the English coast. My blood went cold as winter ice. Astrid was alive, but in chains. "The deal was simple," Bjorn continued, his voice cracking. "Sabotage Fenris Fang. Frame you for it. Create chaos in our ranks so the raid would fail. Do that, and they'd free her. Refuse, and—" He swallowed hard. "They sent me her finger as proof, as a warning of what comes next if I don't obey." My hands clenched into fists. "So you did it. You stole the sword, broke it, planted it in my tent." "I had no choice. She's the only woman I ever—" His voice broke completely. "Even after she chose you, Erik, I never stopped loving her. Not for one day." "And the silver?" "Advance payment. Proof they'd keep their word once the job was done." I stood up slowly, my mind racing through possibilities. This wasn't about revenge or honor or jealousy. This was the Saxons using our emotions against us like weapons. They'd found our weaknesses, Bjorn's love, my reputation, Haldor's faith in his blessed blade, and twisted them into knives. One question remained, burning in my mind. Who in our camp was feeding information to the Saxons? Who told them about Astrid? About Bjorn's feelings? About the perfect way to tear us apart from inside? That's when I heard it. A sound that didn't belong in a Viking war camp. Latin prayers, soft but clear, coming from behind Haldor's tent. I sprinted toward the sound, with Bjorn stumbling after me, pushed aside the heavy tent flap, and froze. A figure in monk's robes knelt on the ground, praying to a Christian cross made of tied sticks. But I recognized those hands. those scarred knuckles from years of gripping a shield in the wall. "Ulf," I said quietly, "Haldor's most trusted warrior, his second in command for 15 winters, slowly turned around and smiled." The silence stretched like a taut bowstring. 200 Viking warriors stood frozen, staring at their second in command. The man who had fought beside them for 15 winters. The man who had just admitted betraying them all to a foreign god. Ulf's hand moved slowly toward his sword. "Haldor, listen to me carefully. This raid is suicide. The Christians know you're coming. They have 200 English soldiers waiting at Lindisfarne. Let me save our people from certain death by destroying our most sacred weapon?" Haldor's voice came out barely above a whisper, more dangerous than any shout. "By framing my best warriors? By condemning them to blood eagle for crimes they didn't commit?" "Sacrifices for the greater good," Ulf said. "For salvation. For the true God who—" Haldor's fist caught him square in the jaw. The traitor dropped like a slaughtered ox, his Christian cross falling into the dirt. "Thing assembly," Haldor commanded with cold fury. "Now!" Within minutes, the entire warband formed the sacred circle. This was how free Norsemen handled justice. No king's court, no corrupt officials, just warriors and truth and the old laws. I stood at the center beside Bjorn. Ulf knelt between us, hands bound with the same blessed cord he'd used to frame Bjorn. The gods had a sense of poetry. Haldor addressed the assembly with a voice that carried to every man. "Fenris Fang was destroyed by conspiracy. 3 men stand accused: Grimskald, Bjorn the Silent, and Ulf Ironhand. We have heard testimony. Now we pass judgment." "I'm guilty," Bjorn said before anyone else could speak. "I broke the sacred sword. I planted false evidence. But I did it to save the woman I love. Astrid Ravenhair lives as a Saxon slave, and I would do it again to free her." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, some angry, some understanding. Love made men do terrible things. Every warrior there knew it. "But I am guiltier," Ulf interrupted loudly. "I orchestrated everything. I gave our plans to the Saxons. I told them our numbers, our strategy, our weaknesses. I betrayed every oath I ever swore to this warband. And I feel no regret, because I serve a higher purpose now." The warband erupted in fury, but Haldor raised his hand for silence. "Grimskald," the Jarl turned to me, "you were wrongfully accused. By our law, you're owed blood compensation. Name your price." I looked at Bjorn, the man who had framed me for execution, the man who did it for love. Then at Ulf, the true traitor, the fanatic who nearly destroyed us all. "My price is this," I said carefully. "Let Bjorn live. Send him to find Astrid. Let him try to rescue her from the Saxon slavers. If he succeeds, his crime is forgiven. If he fails," I shrugged, "the Saxons will kill him anyway. Either way, justice is served." Bjorn's eyes widened in shock. "You would do that? After everything I did to you?" "You're a fool," I told him honestly. "But you're a fool for love. That's different than being a traitor to your own people." Haldor considered this, then nodded slowly. "Agreed. Bjorn leaves at first light. Take 3 volunteers. Find your shield maiden, or die trying." Then the Jarl's face went dark as storm clouds. He turned to Ulf. "But you sold us to our enemies, not for love, not for honor, for foreign silver and a carpenter's god." There is only one punishment, I said. The warband responded as one voice. Blood Eagle. What happened next, I will not describe in detail. Let me say only this. Blood Eagle is not just execution. It is warning. It is lesson. It is message carved into flesh so deep that no warrior who sees it will ever forget. Some turned away when Ulf's back was opened. Others watched with stone faces, knowing this could be them if they ever broke their sacred oaths. Ulf's screams echoed across the camp until sunset finally came and silence fell with the darkness. By nightfall, his body hung from a post at the camp's edge, a reminder that betrayal always has a price, and we always collect. That night, Jarl Haldor came to my fire. He carried something wrapped in oiled leather. For you, he said simply. I unwrapped it. Fenris Fang, reforged. The blade was shorter now, welded from the 3 broken pieces, but somehow it felt stronger, truer. The gods test us, Haldor said quietly. They broke my blade to reveal the break in my trust. Now both are reforged, stronger than before. And the raid? I asked. We sail tomorrow, but we change everything. Ulf gave the Saxons our plans, so we'll hit them where they're not expecting us. He smiled like a wolf. And Grimskald? You're my new second-in-command. We raided Lindisfarne 3 days later, but that story is for another time. If you seek more tales of Norse betrayal and blood justice, join our warband, and tell me, which moment in this saga struck you hardest? In the world of Vikings, honor is earned, betrayal is punished, and every tale begins with a lie and ends with blood. Skål, warriors, until we meet again.